one more before Lobo comes up. We got Queens Road Capital with Warren Gilman coming up. You've been a financer in the global resource sector for many, many years now. Mining engineer.
Yep,
CIBC Investments for like 26 years and CEF for another 8. And tell us what you're doing now.
Okay, we started Queens Road Capital 3 years ago, so it's a relatively young company. And we're not a mining company. We don't have a whole heck of a lot of gold exposure. So you're probably wondering, what in the world am I doing here? But I see I'm not alone. I see that Empress was up and EMX, so I guess you don't have to be a mining company to show up anymore, so that's good. Thank you for attending. The good news is, as far as I'm concerned, you're about 15 minutes away from Kai buying us all a beer. So let's not delay that any longer than we have to. That's the good news. The bad news is, not only do you have to listen to me for the next 5 minutes, but you get to spend your entire lunch hour with me tomorrow. So that's the bad news. So I'm not going to dwell on things here very long. I'm just going to give you some really basic information. Queens Road Capital, I think I can advance this to the relevant page. Here it is. This is market cap. We're about $300 million market cap. We are a TSX listed company, main board, not the venture exchange. We're a Caymans-based company. I probably don't need to explain that to you, why we're Caymans-based. We're Toronto listed, but we're Caymans-based. I won't say any more about the motivation behind that. But oddly enough, about 80% of our shareholders are Australian. So we might say that we're a truly global organization. Caymans-based company, Toronto listed, 80% of the shareholders are in Australia, and I live in Hong Kong. So Mind and Management is in Hong Kong, and the only office that Queens Road has is in Hong Kong. So global indeed. Who are our largest shareholders? There are 5 Australian billionaires who are the major shareholders. Jack Cowan is the fast food king of Australia. He owns all the Burger Kings, although they're called Hungry Jacks in Australia, if you know Australia well. Hungry Jack being Jack, who's a big ex-wrestler and football player who likes to eat his burgers. Andrew Forrest, through Wailu, Australia's richest man. Not the richest person, Australia's richest man. Richest person, of course, is his competitor, Gina Reinhart. She is the richest person. Brett Blundy, 3rd largest shareholder, retail king of Australia, lives in Monaco, but he's originally Australian. Not listed here, John Singleton, advertising king of Australia, the original madman, self-made billionaire 8 times over. He's gotten divorced 8 times, so he had to remake his billion 8 times. I kid you not, 8 times. His current wife is his divorce attorney from his last divorce. I kid you not. I kid you not. He is the original madman, if you remember the was it HBO series? But he's the original, 85 years old, still has several martini lunches every day, and constantly on the lookout for wife number 9. And then not listed here, but W.H. Soul Pattison, who isn't a self-made billionaire. It's a value investor in Australia that's been around for almost 200 years. They were one of the founding shareholders in the company. They saw a good thing or figured out it was a good thing when they saw it, and so they've been a serial investor in Queens Road ever since, and have been a significant co-investor in our last investment, which I'll cover shortly. Common shares outstanding, no debt, incredibly simple structure. There are 3 employees of Queens Road. That's it. So we talk about burn rates. I don't think there's been a company you saw today that has fewer employees than Queens Road. I think 3 is the record, but if anyone can beat that record, let me know, and I'll lay someone off. Not me. I guess it'd be my offsider. I'll have to send him the email because I need the CFO. I think it's a regulatory requirement that you have a CFO, so she has to stay. But 3, there'll only be 3. So the burn rate in terms of salaries, costs less than $1 million a year to run this company. And guess what? We make about $20 million a year currently in cash flow. So how do we do that? We don't invest in common shares as a general rule. We invest in convertible debentures that pay us a coupon every quarter. So the cash just comes in the door. As soon as the cash goes out the door, from that moment on, the cash starts coming back to us. Our convert portfolio, based on the last investment that we made, is now up to $149 million. It generates, about a coupon on average about 10%. So call it 150 million, 10%, $15 million US dollars, around 20 million Canadian. And all of that money, after they pay my salary and the 2 other salaries, flows out the door in terms of dividends. So we've been a dividend payer since our very first year of operation. How many people in this room can say they started a public company and paid a dividend at the end of their very first year of operation? Hands up. Very first year. We've been doing this for 3 years. Every year the dividend goes up by double digits. It'll always go up by double digits. I can actually sit here today. We just paid our dividend last week. Our 3rd annual dividend, we paid it last week. I can sit here today and tell you what the dividend will be next year. I'm not going to tell you, because I'm probably not supposed to. But I can tell you it will grow from double digits from where it is today. How do I know that? I can sit here and tell you today what my revenue will be at a minimum next year. How can I do that? We're not a royalty company. Not to say anything bad against royalty companies. But when you're a royalty company, you don't really know what your income is going to be next year. What's the mine going to produce? What disaster may befall us? What will commodity prices be? They go up, they go down, who knows? I know what my coupon is on my debentures. I know that money is coming in. These are all credit-worthy companies who are going to not miss their coupon payment. So I can tell you what my revenue will be next year at a minimum. I say at a minimum because we grow our portfolio at the rate of about 50% a year. So maybe our revenue will be 50% greater than that, but I'm not counting on it. I'm just telling you what I know my revenue will be for next year. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting into tomorrow's lunchtime talk. So why don't we just spend 5 minutes on the investments that we've got? I think we are what you'd call a high conviction investor. I don't want to have a portfolio of 20 or 30 million convertible debentures. 20 or 30 convertible debentures. I want a portfolio of maybe 5 to 10. Currently, I have 6. The idea is find a great ore body and then throw as much money as I can afford at it and stick with it for years and years and years. Oops, go back. So we started off with NextGen. NextGen was our first investment about 3 years ago. The one exception we ever made to buying just converts, we did a $15 million convert and we did $15 million of equity. We, in the last 6 weeks, changed that into a $70 million convert and still own all the equity. So that 15 million convert has grown into a 70 million convert. And by the way, the new convert is at a higher coupon than the previous convert, even though NextGen has grown from a company that was a few $100 million to a $5 billion company. Our coupon today is higher. And the $15 million that we invested in equity today is worth $100 million. I literally got a WhatsApp from the CEO, Lee Courier, 30 seconds, total coincidence, 30 seconds ago, just before I got out, came up. The conversion premium on our NextGen coupon. We did this convertible 5 weeks ago, the $70 million convertible. All our convertibles are the same. They're all convertible at 130% premium to market. So the first 30% in the increase in the share price, we don't have exposure to. Well, we made that 30% on NextGen in the last 5 weeks. As of 5 minutes ago, NextGen traded through that conversion price to a new all-time high. So needless to say, our investment in NextGen is going well. Queens Road Capital is the second largest shareholder in NextGen on a fully diluted basis. The largest shareholder being Li Ka-shing, who I put into NextGen in our first investment in 2016 and a second investment in 2017 in my previous role investing money for Mr. Li. So he's the largest investor. I'm the second largest. The royal eye. Our second investment, also about 3 years ago, ISO Energy, the exploration subsidiary of NextGen. Why did I invest in ISO? At the time we invested in ISO, it was 20 drill holes. No resource. They didn't do a resource statement until 2 years later. But you looked at those 20 drill holes and you knew you had a mine. And of course, the resource statement that came out 2 years later is an ore body that you gotta love NextGen with an ore body that has some high grade in it. The average is 6%. ISO, 50 million pounds at 50% uranium. 50% uranium. You can't even hold that ore in your hand, it's so hot. So you knew after looking at those drill holes that this thing was going to be an incredible resource, and it is. Those 50 million pounds in the ground today is worth $4 billion. $4 billion of uranium at the highest grade of any deposit ever discovered by humankind. That's our second debenture. We've put $10 million into it. It was convertible at 88 cents. It's trading over $4 today. So if we were to convert, that's roughly $45 million in value. Third investment, Adriatic. Adriatic is perhaps a little less well known in the North American context, might be known a little bit more here because it's London listed and the ore body is just south of us in Bosnia. But we put a $20 million convertible into Adriatic 2 years ago now. And since that time, Paul Cronin has done, if you follow the story, an absolutely incredible job. He's just shut the lights out. When I first put the money in, he said, okay, Warren, I need to finish the feasibility study. I need to get this thing permitted in Bosnia that hadn't permitted a mine in about 40 years. I need to get the project financing in place, and I need to build the mine. And he said, I'm going to do that over the next 3 years. And I said, well, that's perfect, because I think it's going to take you 5, and I'm going to give you a convertible debenture that's 5-year maturity. So I think we're okay. Well, here it is 2 years later, and he starts producing in January. It didn't take him 3 years, it took him 2 to do all of that. Mind-boggling, unbelievable. And as much as I love NextGen, the IRR at feasibility for NextGen at a $50 uranium price was 50%. 50% IRR. Tremendous, huge. How many projects in the world are 50% IRR? The IRR on Adriatic Sphera's project at the feasibility study was 102%. Who wouldn't want exposure to that ore body, and it starts producing next month? And by the way, don't lose sight of the fact that every single one of these companies pay us to become a shareholder. They're paying us. We don't own the equity. We have a convertible that pays us a coupon every quarter. They pay us to eventually become a shareholder. But what great ore bodies underlying that? Los Andes copper. We've heard a lot about the future of copper. Who wouldn't want exposure to a copper porphyry 2 hours outside of Santiago, 100% owned by us, without any offtake agreements or obligations to anyone, at low elevation, and is 30 billion pounds of copper. 30 billion. Recently published a pre-feasibility study that outlined mineable reserves of 11 billion pounds within a greater resource of 30 billion pounds. This ore body is going to be worth a heck of a lot of money someday. Right now, we're having a lull in the copper market, so it's not worth that much. Market cap's about 350 million. But it's worth a lot more. But we don't have to worry about selling it this year. We don't have to worry about selling it next year. We sit back and collect our coupon every quarter and wait. And finally, to talk about gold just for a second, Contango Ore, US listed company, joint venture with Kinross. We own 30%, Kinross owns 70%. 4 grams per ton, open pit. We just ship it to the Fort Knox mill, ship it, we truck it. No tailings facility, no mill, 4 grams per ton, open pit. It's a license to print money. And we've got a 20 million convertible debenture. They're paying us 9.5% coupon. What happens in that case? Well, if gold takes off, we make a lot of money. If it doesn't take off, does Kinross take us out because we own 30% and this is feed for the Fort Knox mill that is absolutely vital to push out the lifetime on Fort Knox? That's why we invested in Contango. That just gives you a feel for the things we look for. We want quality, and we concentrate on making those investments work. We help them to the extent we can. All the coupons from these companies go to you as Queens Road shareholders and our 5 Aussie billionaire friends who seem to know a good thing, I think, when they see it. I'll leave it there for now. We'll talk a little bit more about why we do what we do, but I think we're closer to that beer from Kai. I see he's here. I'm ready to cash in. Any
Thank
questions?
You coming up?